Hi guys, Uncle Jesse here. Alright, we've been working on this wine now. It's been working off for 8 days, and I've noticed the fermentation has slowed down quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I barely hear it tick every once in a while. Tick. Now, normally I would just go ahead and let it sit and work off till Monday, but we have things to do, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it today. Give it a little taste, check the alcohol content, and see what we got. Okay, let's drain some off and check the alcohol content and give it a little taste.
Welcome to Uncle Jesse's Philippines Adventure. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell, please. Thank you.
I love you. I love you.
We need money.
Y'all don't mind my hair. Need a haircut. And I just broke my glasses. No, I didn't. Okay then. Oh boy, my frogs love to talk to me. Can you hear them? I bet they'd be some good eating if I could catch them little critters. Alright, now I don't normally do this, but just to check the alcohol, I'm going to use the valve on my jug to strain a little bit out. And hopefully it don't clog up and go to leaking. Let's pray for that. Let's get you down so we can see. There's a chair over here so it don't kill my back. Alright. Got me one of these little alcohol meters. And we'll see how it... Woo! I can smell it. That smells strong. It smells strong, but we'll see. Now, I'll explain about these things in a little bit. Let's see if we can draw some off. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, she's working. She's still upon me. Come on. Okay, we might have a drip, but we'll see. What we got here? What we got here? Oh, hell. Way over full, Uncle Jesse. Way over full. See, like I said, these things don't work unless it's about 60-65 degrees average temperature. And this is my whole point right here. This one's reading nothing. It ain't reading nothing. It should be sank down about the 10 mark, I would say. Maybe the 5 mark. But it ain't reading nothing. It's like there's no alcohol in this. That's what it's saying. I just damn sure don't believe it. So that's why I don't care to do specific gravity and let's check the alcohol. Now this might work good on pure grain liquor, methanol, but it just don't work too good with these wines. And it's damn near 100 degrees out here in the open kitchen. I call it a half dirty kitchen. They call it a dirty kitchen here. You know, you can't afford to air condition the whole house. We got one bedroom that's air conditioned, and so that's why the kitchen looks like it does. It's a half clean kitchen, open outside with a roof on it. Anyway, so that ain't telling us nothing, and that's what I hate about people always talking about. Oh, let's check the specific gravity. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let me get me a towel here and clean up my mess. Clean up my floor. Because, you know, unless they're in an air-conditioned room that's about 65 degrees, these damn meters don't work. That's why in a distillery, they have a hot room and they have a cold room. In the cold room, as for doing tests like this, you'll see the guys in there with damn lab coats on because it's fucking cold. Excuse my language. So, now as you see, it's got a good purple color to it, and it's a little murky because I stirred it up a few minutes ago. We're going to lay that over there to the side. I can see it ain't going to be no use at all with wine making because it registered nothing. It didn't even register 0. So, I don't trust that shit no way. How'd they calibrate that, huh? They calibrated it in a 60, 65 degree room. That's how they calibrated it. So let's give her a little taste. Oh, that's good and dry. Actually, that's pretty good hooch right there. Oh, Now, the alcohol just rushed me. For some reason, I'm very sensitive to things. Very sensitive to things. Let's have another taste. That's really dry. The grape's coming in. It's got a good grape taste. Tastes more like champagne, actually. And I can feel the heat. I can feel the heat in my face. I can feel the heat in my chest. I can feel the heat in my belly. And I'm going to tell you what, my honest opinion, now if it was clear liquor, I could shake it and watch the bubbles and give you a good estimate of what the alcohol content was. Because like I said, these meters ain't worth a shit. That's why I really don't use them. Whew! I'm getting head rush already off of that. I would say that's 10 or 12%, maybe more. And she's still working a little bit. Oh man, yeah. I'm gonna get a buzz off of this because I'm gonna drink it. And that's ambient temperature out here. It's good. Man, that tastes good. Oh boy. I could just imagine when it completely worked off and started settling and started getting clear. It'd get a little drier. It's got a tiny bit of sweet taste to it. But really not much. It's pretty damn dry. And I can feel the burn. I can feel the warmth of the alcohol. I can feel it in my face. You notice my face might be starting to get flustered. Because I was a redhead. And you see how white I am. And when the alcohol starts to hit me, my face will turn really, really burnt red. And like my cheeks right here from the sunburn yesterday and this morning, me messing around out in the yard. I had my hat and my sunglasses on. That's why I'm only a little sunburned right here. Anyway, I get sunburned real easy. I can stay out there 5 minutes and I'll be burnt. But there was some questions I'm trying to think. They want to know about the legality of making your own wine and liquor, being a foreigner here in the Philippines. Well, let me pull up my chair here a little bit more. Whew, sweating. Anyway, I'm a permanent resident. I've got a 13A visa. I'm married to my wife. We've been married 3 years. We've been together almost 5 years. Well, I take that back. February 14th was when we first gotten our little hitch on the dating site. And if you want to go back and see that story, let me fix this a little bit. If you want to go back and see that story, help yourself, please go back and watch our other videos if you want to catch up. But to those of you that already know, she told me something on there because I asked her, was she old enough to be on the dating site, and she got mad about it because she was being harassed by other people. Well, excuse me, on the dating site. So, what was my point? Anyway, we've been together 5 years, February 14th. that's when we got in our little spat. So I'm a permanent resident here, and being a permanent resident of the Philippines offers you every right that a Filipino has, except for voting and getting into the politics. I cannot own land, but my wife can. Now, I can own a duplex apartment. I can own the building, but I can't own the land that the building sits on. So when you buy a duplex apartment, you buy the building and you lease the land, I think, for 50 years, 25 years, something like that, and you renew the lease. But in these big complexes where people buy these duplexes, Filipinos, you'll have Filipino neighbors, and some of the duplexes I lived in here is great. I had good friends. But you'll own the duplex, but you won't own the land outside of the little front stoop gate. If you look back in my videos, I lived in a nice duplex when I first got here in Lapu-Lapu. And it's just a little gate, no bigger than my damn kitchen, out on the front porch, I call it. And it had a gate, a big gate, like our gates out here. Look back at the videos, you'll see our gates here. We got a full concrete wall around this whole compound, and this is the only house in the compound of almost 800 square meters. Anyway, you can own the building, and you'll own the building all your life, and as far as I understand, you can pass it down to your kids. But you don't actually own the property that the building's sitting on. Now, I don't know how they work all that. You'll have to do the research, because I'm not into buying a duplex here. Now, I did buy my wife 200 square meters of land, which, if worse comes to worse, her family can take that 200 square meters, which is not very big, about as big as the big house I was building in Tarlac. But it's big enough to grow vegetables and put some chickens on and actually sustain themselves. They can actually live off of that 200 square meters. I've seen it done before. It's done here. The neighbors are doing it. They have goats that they keep tied up, and they let the goats go around the perimeter and keep, move them, and they eat the grass around. Then they grow their garden in the middle, and they grow year-round vegetables. And they have chickens up in their chicken coops, in their pens. They have eggs, they have chickens. A couple of them even have cows. They just walk around, and the other people's fields, they'll say, yeah, put him out there, let him clean up the grass. Because, they just put it on your neighbor's field and let your cow graze. But anyway, back to what I was saying. The art of making mash, wine, wort, whatever you want to call it. My mom called it her brandy mix, or brandy wine mix. And then when she got it together, it was showing up some brandy, because she would get some straight moonshine, which was made out of peaches also, which was probably about 140 proof liquor, 120 to 140 proof liquor. Now, like I said, we didn't have all these fancy gauges and stuff. They don't work in the South anyway. It's hot as hell there, like it is here. So you shake the jar and you watch your bubbles. The bigger the bubble, the longer they stay in the jar submerged. That's how you gauge what the proof is of your liquor. Now, my granddaddy could tell you what the proof of a liquor was after a couple of shakes, a couple of tastes, and a couple of more shakes. And I tell you what, he could take it to town, and this other guy had some better meters than what we got today, and this plastic junk. And he had actual mercury alcohol meters, and he would drop it in there, and it'd be 140, 120 proof. Within, my grandpa would say, oh, that's 120 proof. take it to the guy, be 118 proof, 119 proof, 120 proof sometimes. He said, oh, that's 140 proof. Shake it, look at it, shake it, look at it. Take it to the guy. If somebody had an argument, drop that glass mercury hydrometer in it and say 140 proof. So you can't deny these old timers. When they tell you something, you better listen, because they didn't have all these gauges and stuff. And oh, let's check specific gravity and blah blah blah. No, they felt it by eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. That's how you do it. And this stuff tastes pretty good. I think I'm getting a buzz. Got that little fizz on my tongue. It's still fermenting a little bit. That tastes exactly like great champagne or a good quality champagne. A lot of your champagnes will have vanillas, different spices in it, different flavorings. I like mine plain. I like my wine plain. Now, when I run my liquors, I put a little different spices in it. But other questions. Let me think about what the other questions are. Man, it's hot out here. Oh, I wanted to tell y'all, the ones that don't know, the yeast, the dry yeast, they're like in the air. They're not a bacteria, they're a microbe, so to speak. But there's billions of them in the air, and you breathe them in and out every day. What they do is they love sugar. They will attract to this. You can put a cloth over this, like I got a cloth over that. You ain't even got to really add the yeast. It'll take a lot longer, but the yeast will migrate to this sugar mix and start feeding. And what the yeast do is they pee out alcohol and they fart carbon dioxide, CO2. So, just like your breath, well, they fart carbon dioxide. That's what gives it the bubbling, the foamy. When you see the bubbles, that's the yeast literally excreting carbon dioxide gas. And it's not harmful. You know, you don't want to be in a closed-in space. It might knock you out. I don't know. But that's what they do. They pee alcohol and they fart carbon dioxide, and that's where the bubbles come from. And so, yeah, that alcohol meter's out to shit. I might be saying that's 12% right there. 10 to 12%. That's pretty good. It might be a little bit stronger. I'm getting a head rush. Anyway, your yeast eats the sugar, farts carbon dioxide, urinates or discharges alcohol, and that's the process of fermentation. Now, if you let this go too long, it will turn into vinegar, which will have no alcohol in it, because if you leave it open, all your alcohol will evaporate out of this mix. So let's say I wanted to take this 5 gallons of wine, wort, mash, whatever you want to call it, grape mash, and turn it into vinegar. Well, what I would do is I wouldn't stir it no more. I'd put this cap on it, and I'd set it back over here and wrap it up with this clean towel, because it gets cool. We're close to the mountains. At night, it gets cool. It gets down to 75, 80 degrees, and when you're used to being in the 100 degree, that 20, 30 degree temperature drop, you'll actually put some clothes on. But it's nice at night here. But if I leave this out, just set it over here in the corner, and I leave it 6 months, let's say, with the lid tightened down on it, and my paper towel over the small inlet of the water jug with the rubber bands on it to keep the bugs out, and I just let this sit for a few months, it will eventually lose all the alcohol and turn into vinegar. and it will be some of the best vinegar you ever want. Now, that made me think of what somebody else commented, and I can't think of the wine he was talking about. I don't know, some fancy European cooking stuff, cooking wine, but he was talking about it was fortified wine. Well, my friend, I looked it up for you. If you want to know how to make your nice fortified wine that you and your wife love to cook with, and I bet that's some damn good food they cooking, because he sounded like he might be a trained chef. And he had this question. He wanted to know where he could get this certain fortified wine, and could he make his own fortified wine, because it was hard to find here. My friend, yes you can. And here's my suggestion. Wait a minute, let me get one of my jugs over here. Now, it's going to take a little bit of work on your part, but you can take this Welch's grape juice. Take a little bit of grape juice out of it. Now this is a half a gallon, so I'd drop a half a pound to a pound of sugar in it. Shake it really, really good. Of course, I'd want to boil it first, let it cool off. Then you'd add your sugar into your cooking pot, the pot you boiled it in, to get rid of the additives. Well, excuse me, my wine's giving me a little gas. Anyway, you want to put your cooled off Welch's grape juice back into your grape jug here, and only fill it. I'd fill it right about this line right here. That's probably what that line's for. Okay? Then I would drop a teaspoon of yeast in it. You can put a bubbler on top, or you can take a clean paper towel, which is what I use, put it over the top and put a rubber band or two around it to keep the bugs out. Now here we have really bad ants. Ants, if you don't like ants, don't come to the Philippines, because your house will be covered in them. But if you'll take a little bit of baking soda and spread it out on your counter and set your sugar grape mix on it while it's fermenting, the ants will leave it alone. But if you don't, they'll cover it and they'll actually chew holes in your paper towel and get in there, and then your mash mix or your wine will be full of damn ants. Anyway, let's get back to the story. You put this much back in your Welch's grape after you boil it to kill the preservatives. Put about this much back in it up to this line here. Now this is a half a gallon. I'd put a half a pound of sugar in it, maybe 3/4 pound of sugar in it. Shake it up real good while it's still warm to dissolve the sugar, and then I would let it get to where I could hold it. So I know it was between 80 and 90 degrees, or if you got a thermometer, stick a thermometer to it, electronic thermometer, they work pretty good. And when you get it between 80 and 90 degrees, dump your teaspoon of yeast in it, and you can put your paper towel over it, or put you a bubbler in it, however you prefer to do it, to keep the bugs out. That's all we're doing here, is keeping the bugs out, because if this don't breathe, the yeast will die if they lose all oxygen, just like every other creature on earth. If you have no oxygen, you will die. So, the bubbler don't do nothing but keep the bugs out. That's basically all it does. Come on guys, we know. Anyway, after about 8 or 10 days of fermentation, you can taste it and see if you feel warmth. If you feel the warmth, you have the alcohol in it. Alright? Now if you go ahead and cap that off and sit it on a counter somewhere, that's going to explode. Especially if it's still fermenting. You have to be very careful about that, because this is still fermenting a little bit. It's fermenting really, really slow because they've eaten almost all the sugars out. And I can tell that just by the taste, because it's bitter. It's like a dry wine. It's what the fancy people call it. But us rednecks, it's a little bitter. If it tastes bitter, it's ready to run an alcohol still. Okay, so You got your bitter mix. You got your wine. It's dry. You taste it. You take a little sip. It's dry. Your bubblers doesn't stop bubbling. You cap it off, set it off in your refrigerator. Overnight, you come back, you break it, it'll go psst, but it won't explode. Why? Because the coldness of that refrigerator will stop the fermentation. And actually, if you leave it in the refrigerator a few days, your yeast will start dying off and settling to the bottom. Now, I don't know if you've ever opened a fancy bottle of wine, but I have, because my aunt used to make it. It'll have a little bit of sediment down at the bottom. Now, pop the cork in there, put some candle wax on it, wrote a date on it, and let it sit. And now we're fixing to get to Uncle Jesse's story time. Uncle Jesse's story time in my Aunt Margie's fine wine. Okay, well, she'd set it on there, and it would set just like that on its side. Well, when she passed away, I inherited a half-gallon bottle of her wine. And this half-gallon bottle, you could tell it had, when I got it, it was sitting straight up. But you could tell it had been laid over on its side. It had a wooden cork in it. And it had at one time some wax on it, because I could see the wax around the edges. And it had her initials on it and a date of 1970 something. I really can't remember. Anyway, it was early 1970s. And my mom said, here, Aunt Margie would probably want you to have this, because as far as I know, I'm the only one in the family of the grandchildren, the nieces and nephews, that even make wine. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that's ever made any liquor. That kind of died off from my grandparents to their children. When it come to the grandchildren, it kind of died off from there, because none of them had any interest. And it's illegal in America to make moonshine. Where we're at, Georgia's horrible. Anyway, Thomas Jefferson once said, if you think a law is unjust and cruel, and you think it, goes against what you believe and your freedoms, you have the right to break that damn law anytime you feel free. And this goes against my survival. This goes against everything I've been taught. The laws against this and making liquor, I'm sorry, I'm going to break it every time, just like Thomas Jefferson. But he sat out there on his back porch. I read a book, some of his memoirs, and he said, as I sit out here on my back porch, now we're talking about the President of the United States way back, Thomas Jefferson. He said, as I sit out on my back porch and look out across my hemp field and smoke me one, I feel the love of my plants. And I take me a sip of my whiskey, I know life is good. Now, that's used to be America. Now, the whole world is shit, man. But anyway, back to the story. I got handed that bottle of wine. I took it home, and knowing my Aunt Margie, she made her wine. And she also got a jar of one of my uncle's 140 proof liquor. And I've seen her do this myself as a little boy, so I know. When my mama said, here, you probably appreciate this, because I was like damn pair of binoculars looking every time they moved when they was doing this stuff. I was right under their skirt tails watching and listening and absorbing like a sponge. But my mom handed me that half a gallon jug of wine. And that night, we was sitting around, me and some of my friends. And I said, here's some wine my aunt made, let's try it. So I poured everybody up a little glass. We had already drank a couple beers. But took a sip of it. It was like taking a sip of, I would say, a grape brandy, because it was a really dark color and there was a little wood chip in there, charcoal wood chip. So she dropped a piece of charcoal oak in there, I know, to let it age. And also, she had put some of my uncle's corn whiskey in there, because we took a sip of that wine and it was like, oh man, that's good. Smooth. Wow. Okay. Well, I had a girlfriend that I was dating at the time. She grew up in, or was born and raised in South Africa. She was an Afrikaans South African. She come home one day from work. She said, damn, all I could afford to do is buy a 6-pack. And I wanted to get drunk tonight. And I just started dating this woman. And you know, we were in our 30s. She had a few kids, teenagers. I had teenagers. We were in our mid to late 30s. She was a couple years older than me. Beautiful woman. Crazy as a bedbug, but a beautiful woman. Well, she come home. She said, I really wanted to get drunk tonight, but I just bought this 6-pack of Budweiser, and that's all I could afford. And I was like, oh, you want to get drunk tonight, huh? Well, I tell you what, you drink 3 of those Budweisers and hit a couple shots of my aunt's wine, you'll be drunk. She didn't believe me. She laughed it off. She drank 3 Budweisers, took 3 regular 1.5 ounce shots of my aunt's wine, because that's how we drink it. We'd shoot it. It was fortified wine. The next day she woke up, she got drunk and passed out, and I had to tote her and put her in the bed. The next day she woke up, she said, oh my God, what happened? I said, well, you drank them 3 beers, you said you wanted to get drunk. So while you was drinking them 3 beers, I brought out my Aunt Margie's wine and gave you 3 shots. And I went back to watching TV, and the next thing I know, I look over at the kitchen table and you're passed out on the table. So I had to go put you into bed. She was like, oh my God, that wine's fantastic. But it was probably about 30 or 40% alcohol. Maybe 25, 30% alcohol, that wine. It was strong. It might have been higher proof than that. I don't know. She might have took the moonshine and poured the whole jar in the bottle and then filled the bottle up with the wine to give the moonshine a smooth taste. So she made some fantastic wine. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get another shot. Hell, I'm getting a buzz now. There we go. Now, and I only drank this one little thing full. And as you can yeah, I'm getting a little buzz. As you can see, it's still a little fermented. Oh man, that's good. That's gonna be some good stuff, fellas. I'm telling you, that's gonna be some good stuff. Now I'm gonna let it sit. I think I'm gonna let it sit another day or two. I don't know. I need to go ahead and strain it up. But I think I'll wait. I might strain it up tomorrow, because Monday next week we got things to do. What's today? Saturday? Yeah. Alright, I had another question. Oh, so the guy that wanted to know about the fortified wine, I didn't know what he was talking about. He was naming it. I'd have to go back and look. It's some fancy name I'd never heard of before. But it's a fortified wine they use for cooking. And I looked it up. And it's 20 to 25% alcohol wine. And what they do, after they make their wine, they take straight grain liquor and they mix it with their wine to bring the alcohol volume up to 20%, 25% alcohol, which that makes it 40 to 50 proof wine. So that's what my aunt used to do, and it'd knock you down. You drink a glass of her wine, you'd be drunk like I am with this. But that's how you make your wine, dude. your fortified wine you can't find for cooking. You take your Welch's grape and you boil it for 5 or more minutes. Bring it to a good boil and then turn it down and let it simmer for at least 5 minutes. That will kill all of the preservatives in this. And I know this is a long video, but hey, get over it. I might make it 2. So, kill the preservatives in this. Let it cool down, put it back in your Welch's bottle, throw your little yeast to it, put your bubbler on it, let it ferment for about a week, 10 days. When the bubbler stops bubbling, cap it off good, put it in the refrigerator. Now, when you put it in the refrigerator, if there's any little bit of fermentation going on, that's going to kill your fermentation in the fridge. You can if you got a big freezer, you can even set it off in the freezer, and that will immediately kill it within an hour or 2. And then you can pull it back out and stick it in the fridge. Just leave it in the fridge a few days to make sure you killed all fermentation in there. Now, your yeast and your sediments are going to settle down to the bottom as long as you leave it set, closed off. Because remember, if you leave it set open, it's going to turn into vinegar. So you want to seal it off, set in the fridge to kill fermentation after 8 or 10 days, and let that settle. Then you take you a mash, whatever you want to do. If you've done what I've done here, and you made 5 gallons of this wine, wort, mash, whatever you want to call it, you make it just like I've tried to teach y'all. And then, when the fermentation slows down, you don't want to cap it off because it might be slowly fermenting another 10 days. And I've had bottles explode on me. I had some of my banana brandy. After 18 days, it was good and it done settled, started looking clear. So I bottled it up, and I had one of my glass bottles explode on the shelf in Dan Matayan. So you have to be careful with this stuff, guys. We heard an explosion and I went in there trying to figure out what was going on. It was one of my bottles. Luckily, I had my bottles separated, because if you got them close in, like my mom had, you'll wind up with a room full of wine or, whatever, peach brandy all over the ceiling and walls, because it could cause a chain reaction. Hers caused a chain reaction. Anyway, if you leave this open, it'll make vinegar. So you can make you a big batch of this, and they all say, 3 to 5 days. Yeah, no. My granddaddy always left it 10 days. He always said 10 days on, 10 days off. That made it 20 days. He would take his corn and stuff out, strain it up really good, put it back in his barrel, and leave it another 5 to 10 days to make damn sure it was through fermenting and getting all the alcohol he could get out of that sugar. And then he would run it off in the still, and boom, it'll have 140, 180 proof, 160. It just depends. It just depends. It depends on the weather. It depends on how fast you run it. It just depends. Like I said, this is not an exact art. You have to practice and practice and practice and keep doing it. Now I'm a little rusty because I haven't done it in years and years and years. But I've started getting back in it in my older age, and I'm going to be building a still. So after you put your wine in the refrigerator, you take your big batch like mine, run it through your still. Run it slow. I run the top of my still about 185, 190 degrees at the very top of my tower. That way I know what's coming out is around, give or take, 140 proof. Now, when it first starts coming out and I throw off the heads, or the devil's take, it'll be about 160, 150 proof. the first few shots, throw them away. It's the nasty stuff that comes out, you know. Anyway, when the middles starts coming, I taste it. I taste everything. I even take a teaspoon of heads to taste them. It'll come out. It'll be between 145, 140. You get down to 120, and then when the run comes to an end, you'll know it, because it comes out slow, and you can do it by the mason jar. And each mason jar, I'll taste. Halfway through the mason jar, I'll taste. And when it starts getting low, you'll taste it. It'll start tasting a little watery. It'll start tasting a little bitter. It'll start tasting like shit, actually. And I just turn the fire off, pull my jar aside, and let it quit running when I start tasting that. But then you take your mids, the middle of the run, which is the good stuff. You'll take your 140 proof, and you'll put it in your wine. Pull your wine out of the refrigerator, pour a little bit in it, pour a little bit in it. And if you can find it, which I ain't been able to find one here, an old-timey mercury alcohol meter. An old-timey glass mercury. It'll be red. It'll look like an old-timey thermometer. The temperature really don't affect it much. I don't know why. I'm not a scientist. But I know these things right here are calibrated, and you can see it. I see right now, I'm going to try it one more time when I get my still together. But in this heat, ain't worth shit. So, you take your good meters and stuff, but you can probably find them every day in America. Go to the store and buy them, I would imagine. Or order them off Amazon or whatever. Or some of your moonshine friends, and you know, they probably have it. But getting it here in the Philippines, man, it costs you an arm and a leg, and import tax at key. It costs you $500 or $600 one of these little meters, and I ain't going there. Anyway, take your good meter, and you mix your alcohol into your wine to get it fortified, and you want it 20 to 25% alcohol. After you run it through the still and get your high proof alcohol, you pour it in here and mix it till you get it to 20 to 25%, and that'll give you the rest of your bottle. You cap it off, shake it up, put it in the fridge and let it settle, and then you and your wife will have some of that good fancy cooking wine that you like and she likes to cook with, that you like to drink or whatever, and y'all like to cook with. And I told you I'd do it for you guys. That's how you do it. But you're going to need a still, and you're going to need practice on making your wine. And the grape juice is very expensive here, and the wines are really expensive nowadays. Used to, I could get 5 kilos of these wines for a couple bucks from a vendor on the street. Now they're very expensive. They're 200-300 pesos a kilo, which is $5 or $6 for a couple of pounds of these grapes. And this stuff right here cost me $12, roundabout $12 to $14 for a half a gallon in the grocery store. That's expensive to me. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. We talked a bit about fermenting. I'm gonna go ahead and drain this up and let it settle, and then I'll show you another video maybe next week, towards the end of the week when we're not busy, and I don't have a little buzz, because I got a little buzz now from drinking this. But I hope y'all enjoyed it. Please leave your comments. I'll try to get around to answering them. And one of the comments was, what did I do after I heated it in the pot? Did I put everything into this jug? Yes, I did. I put everything into this jug and let it ferment. And we'll talk more about it. I done run this video out in too long. It's Uncle Jesse. Good day.